Today I'm going to show you how to go ahead and install a complete cylinder kit from Cylinder Works on your WR450. Good situation here is that we actually have the engine out because we did a full engine rebuild, so I'll be able to show you even in more detail. Okay, so the kit comes with your piston rings, C-clips, and your wrist pin, and it also comes with your cylinder and your gasket kit, which will be the base and the head gasket, washers, exhaust, the whole deal. First step we got to do is get the cylinder out. Once you have the cylinder out, first thing you got to do is go wash the cylinder from the inside here with soap and water, a good detergent. Make sure you scrub it down with a little Scotch Brite or something. You have one, kind of like your sink, one for the plates. Finish it up, rinse it, wash it, clean it up, and then when you come back, you're gonna go ahead and have to oil that. And I'm gonna show you how to do that. Here's your rings, here's your piston, wrist pin, circlips, everything. So make sure you have everything in the package before you go ahead and start working on this. Here I already washed it, cleaned it up. Now what we gotta do is blow all the water out with compressed air. Make sure that all these gaskets are cleaned off. Carefully get everything, all the water out, and dry out the cylinder. Next step, after you already dried everything out, okay, you're gonna get some 1040 oil, and you're gonna soak a rag with it, nice clean white rag, you know, nice damp spot right here. So then with that wet rag with oil, you're gonna rub the surface of the actual cylinder, and make sure that if it gets dirty, that means your cylinder is not clean yet, so wash it again. If it's oiling up really nice and the cloth is pretty damn white, you're good to go. You got to do the whole process to the whole cylinder. If you properly oil this, you can go ahead and then just oil it again a little bit more. I usually like to add a little bit more oil than normal. It's already on there, so shiny. It's gonna make everything easy and smooth for you when you're gonna install the piston, okay, because then the rings are gonna slide right in. Next step is to check the actual end gap of your piston rings once you set them on and you install them on your piston, which I'm gonna do next. Make sure before you go ahead and do any of the end gap checks to go ahead and grab your instructions, and it gives you all the specs that you need. You'll see right there, two-stroke, 4-stroke, you know, you go depending on what you're doing. And then at the same time, pay attention to the ring installation, okay? In this guide, it'll show you exactly which way the rings gotta go, what marks to look for that gotta face up, so you can make sure you do the proper installation of the rings. Once you've already installed your piston rings on the piston, okay, make sure you oil the piston where the piston rings are at to make sure that everything's nice and loose. By you adding a little bit of oil on the edge right here with the piston rings, you're also helping keep the rings in place. That way they don't move around too freely. Okay, so that's another reason why I like to. If you can see the oil right around the edge, right around all this, and it drips all the way down like that. Okay. And then whatever oil is there as excess, just rub it around on the rings. Make sure all of them are soaked up. After you got everything oiled up and ready, oil up your wrist pin a little bit and slide it in. I also like to make sure I put one C-clip in like that. Usually the one that's towards the timing chain, because usually sometimes here on this side you have more problems because of the timing chain and the guide that get in your way, and it's easier to install the C-clip on the opposite side, you know, especially you can see right here with the arrow pointing forward, the opposite side right here would be the last one that you'd go ahead. From here you would install it onto the actual crank rod, and before doing all this, make sure the surfaces are clean all around here, and that you make sure you set your base gasket. You can't believe how many people will do the whole process, install the cylinder, forget the base gasket. Here I have already properly placed my gasket, your little water spout with the O-ring, my dowel pins, and the base gasket. I usually put a little bit of case sealer here around the bottom edge of this just because water runs through there. You know, a little extra safety shield just to make sure we have no issues. Next step is I'm going to put the piston on now. Next step, I always like to go ahead and put a rag around the actual crank to make sure that when I put the wrist pin in and the C-clip, nothing falls accidentally down into the engine. Okay, and I go ahead and dab this part of the rod with a little extra oil, making sure it's nice and lubed up. Besides just going with the oil, if you have assembly lube, it's always the best way to install assembly lube here, which will be good for the first cold start. Once you have properly installed your C-clip, make sure that the C-clip gap is not facing the opening, the notch. Make sure it's folded if you can all the way to the bottom or completely the opposite of that notch on the right. Okay, make sure the ends of the C-clip don't face that because the end, it could pop out. Now we're ready to go ahead and take the rag and take it off and install your new cylinder. Here it comes. In this situation, make sure you could do this with your fingers, that you close up and squeeze the rings carefully like what I'm doing. You can see how they close. See, they're flexible. Carefully you pop on the cylinder. The good thing is the cylinder has a little bevel on the bottom, which you can see right here on the edge. Okay, that helps you when you're installing the rings and you're pushing down. So you need both hands for this, so I'm going to go ahead and advance on this and show you once it's set. Be careful not to bind these rings or push them down, especially when you get to the bottom part where your oil rings are very thin and very delicate. If you look here, here's your oil rail and your rings. These are the ones that are going to bind if you're not careful, and you're going to pinch them with these sides. I already pretty much got it all in. It takes me about 20 seconds to do it. Once you get some good practice on the compression rings, are the easiest ones. So now I just got to set in, push it in, and bring it down. Pretty much I'm on my way now. One thing I forgot to tell you is make sure that you also line up this guide, chain guide before, and that you have a zip tie if you can on your chain so you're able to pull it up real easy without any issues. Okay guys? Once you have your cylinder on, make sure you put this one bolt on the side of the case of the cylinder in and reach it just enough, very little. That sounds really loud, but it's not. And then go ahead and get your ratchet in the 17 socket and turn the engine through. Okay, making sure at the same time keeping your chain straight from balling up and running the cylinder through a couple times. Okay, so you can make sure everything's set, and then once that's done, then you're done with your cylinder install, and the next step would be installing the head. That's the end of this video for cylinder install. I will show you on the next video the head installation.